Hey guys, in this video I want to talk about this cymbal. It's something that I kind of happened across, a design I kind of happened across, but it has pretty deep ties to cymbals that have inspired me in the past, so let's talk about it. All right, so I'm getting ready for the Chicago Drum Show, and like I normally do, I was ignoring my tasks that I needed to accomplish to get ready because I was just feeling like I wanted to make a cymbal. So I went into my shop, pulled a blank, and I decided, you know what, I'll make a swish cymbal. And then the idea started evolving, and I was like, what if I make the tiniest little mini swish where it just barely has an upturn at the edge. And then it was kind of calling back to mind my very first cymbal that I ever got, which was a Sabian El Sabor crash. Sabian has been known to do this, like these little tiny flat edges. They have a series called the Sound Control, and then they had this design in the El Sabor series. And that cymbal is actually a very important cymbal in my journey becoming a craftsman. It's the only cymbal I ever cracked in my whole life. And when I cracked it, I thought it was useless. I put it in a closet. And in 2018, when I had the idea to start creating sound accessories, percussion accessories, I took that cymbal and had a metal grinder and I cut that cymbal up to make the very first stack ring piece ever. So it kind of has a cool link to my past as a craftsman and how I learned to, how I developed in the very first cymbal I ever worked on, the very first cymbal alloy I ever manipulated to create something out of. So big shout out to Sabian for that. Sabian was my brand when I was a kid. I love the sounds. Some of my favorite drummers played Sabian. And so this is, in a way, a little homage to them, as well as it's related to my general distaste and dislike for China cymbals and swish cymbals. I tend to not prefer them personally because I find that the really extreme upturned edge, it just creates an extremely aggressive sound, which to me is wonderful when you're recording it or when you're hearing it in a live context and you're out listening to a band and the guy's got a China and he goes over and he hits it and it's just like, oh, that's the coolest sound ever. When you're sitting behind it, especially if you don't have hearing protection, it's so aggressive and high-pitched and loud and very obnoxious to me. And so being a cymbal maker, I thought this is kind of what I do normally. I'm like, if I don't like a cymbal, I purposely try to make a version of that cymbal that I would like. And so the idea started out as, okay, well, that upturned edge, you know, it does really choke the sustain of the cymbal. It really does create the rigidity that those cymbals have to create that cutting sound. So what if I messed with the angle, the curvature of that upturn? And so I started working with trying to get the upturn to be very gradual. And when you're making cymbals at the beginning of your journey, you know, Chinas and swishes can be very, very difficult because very quickly they just shoot way up. And so to get a cymbal to have just a gradual edge like that is extremely difficult and it requires a lot of skill. And so it took me many tries to land the design, but eventually I figured out how to do it. And I started making swishes that had basically flat flanges or very slightly upturned. And so this is kind of like the next level of that, to where the edge is basically just flat. It comes down and it just basically levels off at the edge. There might be, you know, I'm looking at it now, there's maybe the slightest upturn. But what this is going to do is it's going to give me just a touch of that China swish flavor without killing the sustain of the cymbal. So the cymbal has a wonderful crash and it can open up pretty big, but it gives you the flavor of a China swish. So if you like the sound of those cymbals, but you want something that's a little bit more catered to a more expressive instrument, a more nuanced instrument, then this design is really killer. This is the first one that I've made. So I made it, you know, in basically one session and tested it out the next day and was like, it's done, it needs no tweaking. It is a 22. I'm calling it a SWANG. I don't know if I'm going to keep that name because it's a little silly, but a swish, pang, you know, put them together, you get SWANG. Why not? I'm making this as a part of, I made this as part of my Prism series, so it's got a brilliant finish. It is 22 inches and it weighs 2,107 grams. And as you can see, as I get close, you can see that little slight upturn at the edge. It's a really cool cymbal. So let's test it out, check it out in this perspective, then you'll hear it from drummer's perspective. And yeah, you guys can let me know what you think. So as you can tell, it has plenty of sustain. If you want a kind of China swish type sound, it might have too much sustain, which is why I popped 6 holes in it. Probably can't really see them. 6 equidistant holes all the way around the cymbal, and I pulled them a little bit farther up into the body of the cymbal. They're about 2 inches from the edge. And so when you have 6 rivets in this cymbal, the rivets themselves kind of help weigh it down. And so since I have 6 rivet holes in this, let's hear it with all the rivets installed. Now that I've made this cymbal, I'm super excited about it. But now there's tons of variations that can come from this design. For me, 2,107 grams, it's super thin. So how would this cymbal sound at 2,400 grams? How would it sound even at like 2,700 grams? I really love this design, but I'm now like, okay, what else can we do with this? I find that it's got kind of a large amount of like mid-range buildup, and that's due to how tall it is. It's like I went with a more triangular, tall shape in the profile of it. Okay, so what if that has a little bit more topography to kind of control that mid-range? What if it's a little bit lower to kind of create a more growly, kind of gongy sound? And then obviously, what if it's heavier? What if it's even thinner? What if we do a 20-inch? What if we do a 19? All of that. So I'm really excited about this cymbal design. I'm looking forward to exploring it more and drawing more out. I've already started new blanks where I've started the initial process to get that flat part out at the edge. And so I'm excited to see where this goes. But I would really like to know what you think, so please drop a comment below and keep an eye out for more of these cymbals coming. I'm going to start dropping them in my batches as I make new designs with tweaked specs. And hit the like on the video if you like it, subscribe and hit the bell if you want notifications, and keep an eye out for the next video. My name is Timothy Roberts. Thanks for watching.